Alright, me. It is March 6th. I have a show that I'm leaving for in like an hour and a half. But today, mostly during the past 2 days since I was teaching, I read Robert Harris's Archangel. This is one of the few books, especially within the last number of years, where I saw the filmed version first before the book. It was the thing of I was watching Daniel Craig's filmography, watched this, and then towards the very end found out it was a book. And I think I found out because of a conversation I was having about Conclave, which Robert Harris also wrote, and so that became a whole ordeal. So yeah, the movie is it's strange because really it's like a 2.5 to 3 hour action movie, but the way it usually gets presented is in like 45-minute chunks as episodes. So it's like 3 or 4 chunks, which then makes it, for most purposes on streaming platforms, counts as a series, which then has completely messed up all my recommendations, because now it thinks that I love action series instead of going, yeah, I watched this one action movie. But that's besides the point. Yeah, the book itself. Archangel fits very nicely into what I will now call dad literature, which also contains all of the Robert Langdon series, right? Because it is this form of literature that is about, it's an alternative history, and is now, the entire point then becomes focused around one guy who is a researcher or a professor or something of that sort, who is not this like manly man, hunk chiseled guy, but is rather this kind of just every man, and that every man going on this miraculous journey throughout the world, and with a young woman that is very attractive along with him for most of it, that he was a sidekick, right? And this fits very much within that genre of things. So yeah. So in that sense, right, it's a very procedural in a lot of ways. It is in a lot of ways very expected, but it's still very fun, right? It's a thriller. My understanding of what this is based on is that, so the plot of the book is that it is found that there is some sort of previously unknown information about, and personal papers by Joseph Stalin, who then Fluke Kelso ends up going on this massive journey through Russia to then find out that Stalin had a secret child that no one knew about, that was groomed to be his replacement when the time came, right? And that's kind of that's the story of it, right? And my understanding is that it's based off of something called the Hitler Diaries, which was this kind of mythological thing, but also this ended up being fake, I believe, of that there was a number of people that claimed that they had personal diaries and personal documents from Hitler, that once researchers finally got to look at them, they were proven false. But this is more or less that same concept, right? Of, okay, now who is, besides Adolf Hitler, who would be another leader that we would want to know more personal information about? And the answer would be Joseph Stalin, right? Because historically, under his regime, right, is the life of Joseph Stalin is this fascinating, and the way that he is treated is this very fascinating thing, right? Of being this person that is created a myth about himself in a way that is really unprecedented, I think. And just not having anyone know really any personal information about him. And so, you know, it gets into look into that, right? So yeah. One of the great things I think about this, right, is that is a conversation that has to do with Luke Kelso and Mamatov, something of that sort. And it initially, it happens pretty early on in the book, but it kind of keeps happening throughout of this idea that, like, as Mamatov puts it, you, Luke Kelso, are just as obsessed with Stalin as I am, right? And it's one of those things that I think is always very interesting about the way that we treat history and the way that we look at history, of where the constant need and desire to always prove something wrong is just as much of an obsession as it is to prove it right. And so it becomes this whole ordeal of where if Luke Kelso were to just take a step back and not be obsessed, right, with this outcome, right, and instead just accept and go back to America, then none of this would happen, right? Because as it turns out, that this son is real and has been completely groomed to be the new leader of Russia. And the end of the book is supposed to be him starting to this takeover with things. And then Zenata, I think that's how you pronounce that name. But Z, I will just refer to it as Zed. Within the context of the book, context of the movie itself makes it very clear. But presumably then ends up killing the son of Joseph Stalin, out of anger that her father had been killed as a result of all of this, which is, you know, a whole other plot point and things, right? Culture-wise, right, it's this very interesting thing of where you're dealing with the old Russia versus the new Russia, right? Of where you're still dealing with this people that remember the old times, right? And in a lot of ways worship the old times, right? Because as another comment gets made, right, is that Lenin and Stalin inherited a Russia that had no paved roads and everyone was plowing their own fields, and left it with nuclear weapons, right? Which is this astonishing turnover, right, within a 40-year period, effectively. And it is this truly incredible thing, right? And so what kind of ends up happening is that you have these people that never interacted directly with these leaders that have this immense admiration and immense love for the structure that these leaders provided, right? Under an authoritarianism, communist society, right? And then on the other hand, you have the people that did directly interact with these leaders who left terrified because it is an authoritarian regime, right? And you know, any wrong move could get you killed. And you're dealing with these power struggles, right? Of moving back to the old Russia versus the new Russia, and the communistic versus the capitalistic, and the rights of people in the world, right? And all of these things, and what, the questions of, what is actually end up being better for the world and better for this population. Yeah. So that's I think that's a very, very interesting topic to delve into here. And then the other topic is, once again, we're as with dad literature books, you're dealing with this young woman who is attractive and the smartest person in the room, and everything, but then also like not writing her well, and therefore just needing to like give her quick things to like show who she is as a person. And so like, the one thing that sticks out to me of just like, this is just the sloppiest writing I've ever seen, is that we read some parts from Zenaida's perspective, and then at one point she's talking about herself and talking about like, the new Russia and the role that she plays within it, and she like just very casually mentions that as she's working as effectively a prostitute, as a sex worker, that she's gotten pregnant 2 times and had 2 abortions, and then like never, like that's it, right? Just moves on completely. And it's like, this is such shitty shorthand for this is a woman who is fiercely independent and is willing to do whatever she needs to get what she wants, right? That's what the shorthand is for. And it's just the sloppiest, shitty shorthand in the world, right? Because there's no, like, that's it. It's at the bottom of a page. And those things come in the same paragraph, and then it's never brought up again, and it's never like, it doesn't add to her at all. We already know who she is, right? There's no reason to give this information, and it's just this kind of weird thing, right? But it's also very much in line with kind of these dad type books of like, we need to add this female character, but we need to, it's the fantasy of the taming of independency, right? Which is a thing that often gets brought up, and especially in our current climate, is something that gets brought up a lot, of the concept that conservative men are more attracted to women that are independent, that then become or are willing to become more subservient to them, rather than women who start off in that I'm willing to be subservient role. And it's this fantasy of the taming of a creature, right? And taming of things, and it's this horrific thing, and this is just another aspect of it, right? Especially because in the book, Zenaida has like no effect on anything, right? Is that it is her father that holds the key to everything, and then she basically drops out of the plot for almost the entire second half of the book, until the very end, in which she kills Comrade Stalin, right? In the movie, she is a lot more involved. They basically rewrite the second part to have her involved, which makes a lot more sense, because then you also have this very lovely interaction in the movie that is much more based in and around this concept of the old Russia versus new Russia, when they meet the mother of Joseph Stalin's maid that he had this child with, right? And it is this, in the movie, it gets portrayed a lot better in that aspect, right? Versus this, which is just kind of a yeah, whatever about her. So yeah. I think that's it. I think that's it for Archangel. It's very much enjoyed reading it. It's a very fun dad romp, but it certainly is like there's a lot to be desired here, as there always will be with books of this nature. But yeah.